If the concept of CSS variables is new to you, this video is going to be a perfect primer. It's going to show you in 3 easy sections what CSS variables are, how to get started using them, and how you can power them up with global classes. So first of all, let's take a look at what CSS variables are. So CSS variables, also known as CSS custom properties, are variables defined within CSS or custom style sheets that allow you to store specific values, things like colors, font sizes, spacing units, those kinds of things, in a reusable and flexible way. These variables are defined with the -- prefix and can be accessed with the var open and close parenthesis function. CSS variables can be applied globally or scoped to specific selectors, making them highly versatile for maintaining and updating a consistent design. Now that all sounds a little bit like gibberish. By the time you finish this video, you'll have a good solid understanding of how to use them and what they actually do. So let's move on to phase 2, which is creating and managing CSS variables in Bricks Builder. So I've got a plain old simple page created with a section, a container, and inside there we've got some rich text. This is the starting point. So what we need to do is have some way of creating and using variables inside Bricks itself. Now thankfully, with the later versions of Bricks, we have the variable and class manager. To access that, all you need to do is come up to the symbol at the top left for classes and variables and click to open it up. So this is where we can manage our classes, which we'll take a very brief look at a little later. But if you want a primer on how to work with classes, check out this video. Link in the description too. We're going to concentrate on variables. Now this might look a little bit daunting, but don't worry about it. It's very, very simple and straightforward. All we need to do is we've got the variable name and the value we want to assign to it. So let's keep things really simple with a very straightforward starting point. Let's create our first variable. Let's use this for something like spacing. So you can see we've got the -- already created at the beginning. We don't need to add that in, but normally all your variables are going to start with those double dashes. Let's call this, we'll call it line space M for medium. We'll give it a value. In this example, let's keep it simple and just stick to rems. So we'll do 2rem and we'll click the save. We've now created our very first variable. Let's add a couple more in. Let's create another one called line space L. Let's give this a value of 3rem. Again, save it. And we'll add one more in, line space XL, and we'll call this 4rem. Now, the beauty of working with variables is we don't have to be limited to one type of unit. You can use more advanced things like clamp and those types of things, which again, we will take a look at in a moment. But we've now created these 3 variables to handle spacing in between our line heights. Let's click save. Let's close this down. So with the rich text selected, we're going to come over to the left-hand side, open up the Style tab, and come down to Typography. We're then going to come to our line height. And you see we've got the same symbol here as we've got at the top for our variables and class manager. So what will happen is if we click on this, so this will show us any of the variables we've created or we have access to. As you can see, there's the 3 we've created, including the values that we've assigned to them. So let's say we'll go for line space XL, and you can see the line space changes. Let's come back, choose a different one, line space L for large. Again, you can see it changes, and come back to M. So we've now created and assigned some variables. It's very, very simple example, but let's see how we can expand upon this and how we can take advantage of some online tools that make our life quicker and easier, so we don't have to do every one of these manually. Obviously, you can do if you want to, but let's make things a little quicker and easier. So let's say we want to set up some global colors that we want to use and assign as part of our design. So we're going to use an online generator. I've got my starting color, I've got the number of colors I want to use, and you can see this goes from white through to black with all the shades of the blue in between. If we look underneath, you can see there's all the variables created for us. If we take a quick look, you can see we've got the -- at the beginning, so this denotes the exact values we've got, telling us a variable. Then we've got the color, the primary, and the A0, and then the actual color value next to it. If we copy this, head back over into Bricks, and open up the variable manager one more time. Let's remove these so we've got rid of them. Just start with a clean slate. So let's select them and click delete and confirm. So now what we can do is we can come to the import option, the top corner, select it, and we can drop in those values inside here. So we can easily add multiple values in. So let's just paste that in, import those CSS variables, variables imported 13, click close. There's all our color variables. So now we've got those colors accessible to us. Now let's make life a little bit more organized. Let's create a category for these. Let's say I want to label everything under WPTuts. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to create a new category. Go to WPTuts and click Save. Now we'll select all these by clicking the Select All option in the top corner. This opens up more options, so if you wanted to rename these, categorize them, duplicate them, all options inside here, which is pretty cool. We're going to choose Categorize, then we're going to choose the WPTuts folder, click Update, and now all those variables are sitting inside the WPTuts folder. So we're just organizing things. Obviously, you could get really granular here. You could have one sort of collection for your colors, one for your line spacing, one for your typography settings. You kind of get the idea. So we've now got that set. Let's hit Save. So coming back into Bricks Builder, let's choose the container and let's apply some values to this. We want to change the background color and the text color. So with the container selected, we'll come over to our styles on the left-hand side, come down to background, and inside there we'll choose the color picker. Now you'll notice our colors are not showing up inside here, but don't worry. All we need to do is come down and choose Raw, and then we can click the Variables option, and all of those colors are available. So let's say we choose something like this, A20. You can see now we've set the background color of that to blue. Pretty cool, easy. Want to change it? Simply come in and change it. Now let's go into our typography settings, open up the color chip here, and this time again come down to our raw value, click to open the variables up, and let's set that to be white. Now you're probably thinking, well, why not just use the options that are set here? And you absolutely can do if you want to. However, one of the benefits of working this way when you work with these variables is that you can make a change to your variable. So for example, if you come in here and change the color to something completely different, let's say we change our primary color from white to red, hit Save, and now anywhere that's being used in our entire design, it will update accordingly. So you can see that looks absolutely terrible and probably just ruined your eyesight. But you can see how you can do it. And you can see that changes here as well. But this is like a really simple example with colors. When you start to use this and build out your own sort of CSS framework, the ability to change it in one centralized location and have those changes reflect everywhere is just such a quick and easy way of working. Now, if you're finding value in this video and you'd like to be notified when new content is released, simply hit that subscribe button down below and that will notify you whenever I release new content. Now, let's get back on with the video. So now we've seen how we can set things up for like colors and so on. But what about things like line height and letter spacing and all those kinds of good things? There's lots of ways in which you could do this. One I would recommend taking a look at is Core Framework. One of the benefits of this is that we've got this visual way of being able to style various different things. Now forget about the colors because we're not going to worry about that, but things like your typography, your spacing, all those kinds of things, we can access those variables. So let's say, for example, we want the typography, the spacing, and maybe some of the other elements inside your things like the radius for borders, drop shadows, those kinds of things. Well, what we can do is we can click on the preview CSS once we've made any changes we want inside here. So let's say, for example, we may want to change the typography to be minimum size of 18, maximum size of 20, and maybe we don't want to use the major second, we want to use something like the major third, so adjust the scale in between. We'll hit Save Changes, we'll preview our CSS, and again you can see lots of these values are prefixed with the little dash dash denoting the fact that they're variables. So what we can do now is we can look inside here, and let's say, for example, we've got things like the spacing, so you can see things like 4XS right the way to 4XL, but also things like your text sizes, and the benefit of this is we're using clamp. So we've got natural fluid typographies. You don't have to set an arbitrary value like rems and so on. So this gives us more flexibility. You don't have to use something like this. There's plenty of online generators for working with typography and line spacing, so on. Whatever you want to use. Even if you want to do it by yourself by hand, you can do that way as well. But let's make our life easy. Let's just grab these values. We'll copy those. So now we've got both our spacing and our text sizes. We'll copy those, go back into Bricks, into our variable manager, click the import option, paste those values inside there and import those CSS variables. 19 variables inserted, save and close. And now we've got a pile of variables inside here. So again, let's go and select all of these. Let's categorize them, pop those into WPTuts so everything is nicely organized and update. So now we've not only got colors inside here, we've also got spacing, we've got our text sizes, and we can carry on grabbing whatever we want, creating whatever we want. So I've grabbed a couple more values, things like the corner radiuses and so on. So final thing I'm going to do, again, import, pop those in, import them, close, organize things. So now we've got 43 variables handling things like color, spacing, typography, radius for any of the options we want, drop shadows, all those kinds of good things. Now let's take advantage of those. Let's come back out and let's add a little bit more styling to this. So we'll select our container one more time. This time we're going to come over into our layout options, select to link all of these together, click our little variables option. From there we can search if we want to, space, and we'll do space M. Click, you can see now we've got our spacing inside there. Want to put a border radius in? Not a problem at all. We'll come down to our borders, open this up, link those together, click inside here. We'll do radius. There's our radius. We'll choose large, for example. We've now got our radius set on there. Want to change the spacing, so we're not happy with it? Not a problem. Simply come in, link these together again. Change that from M to L. All those update. Job done. Happy days. So now we're applying variables. Now, before we go any further, let's just say you want to use these with your sort of standard overall site setup. You can still use variables inside the settings and inside the theme styles. So let's create a new theme style. Again, we'll call this WPTuts and click create. So now what we can do is, let's say, for example, we want to pull in those colors, those variable colors. Click inside here. There's our primary color. We could click on there. And instead of using one of these, we can come down to our raw values, open this up, and say we want to use something like, I don't know, let's take this one, for example. So now that's applied a variable to it. You can see we've got this sort of dark blue color. So now if we insert a button, so as you can see, that's inserted the button. Let's add a little bit of space between these. So let's just select the container, come up to content, come into row gap, select a variable. Space we'll set to be something like small. We now put spacing in between. Come back to our button, for example. You can see this is set to primary style, where we can override any variables inside there just simply by coming back into our theme styles one more time. Come into our button. There's our default button, primary button, and so on. So if you want to, we can say, come into our typography. From our colors, click, choose the raw value, open this up, choose our white. You can see that picks that up. Want to add in some borders. Let's go into our border option. Let's select this radius. We'll just come to variables and we'll just start searching for radius. And we'll set this to be small. We now have rounded corners on there. Want to change the typography size? Not a problem. Come in, choose our font size, our variables. Let's say we want this to be medium, or let's go for large. There's our button, text large. All those options are now available inside pretty much anywhere on our overall setup. Whether you want to use theme styles to handle this, whether you want to use inside the actual editor itself, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So this third section is how we can take these CSS variables and the flexibility that brings and use it in conjunction with global classes. So global classes is a simple way of being able to group styles together, things like typography, line spacing, and so on. And again, we can use CSS variables to handle that aspect, like we've already seen. And then by creating a global class that encompasses all of those, we can easily assign that to other elements. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's take everything off this one. Let's just wipe this clean. So what we're going to do is apply a class to this. So let's just call this sample container and hit the enter or return. That's now created a global class. So now whatever we do with that global class selected will be applied to the global class that's applied to, in this example, the container. So let's go and do what we did last time. Let's come into our layout, come into our padding, come to our variables, apply some large space into it, come into our background, choose a color, come into our typography, again do the same thing again, so come into raw, choose a color, we'll choose black in this instance, and we'll also apply that border around the edges. So again, let's select and group these together, do a search for radius, we're going to apply a large radius. So now we've applied the styling. That's been applied to the sample container global class. Now let's just create another one of these, so a new section in. Not going to worry about putting any content inside there for now. We'll select our container, we'll come over and we'll apply that global class. And immediately you can see that picks up the same styling. If we now just duplicate this text and put a copy inside that container, you can see that applies the styling. So now you've seen we've got that same class applied to both of these sections. If we now go and make a change, so we could obviously go make a change to our color inside here, but let's say we made a complete change. We could come back up to our variables, into our variable manager, and let's say for our color primary, we want to set this to something else. Let's just go again for that red. Hit save, come back out, bang. All of those are now being updated. So you see how easy it is to make those changes. Let's say you want to do something else. Let's say We select our container, our sample container, and what we're going to do here is we're going to apply some margins to it. Again, let's come into layout. This time we're going to link our top and bottom. We'll click our variables. We'll click inside, do space, and we'll just choose something like medium. And now we've got a space above and below those. Everything is all working because we're working with variables. So anything can be changed inside the editor if you want to. Want to make a global change without touching the editor? You can simply come into your variable manager and make changes inside here. It is incredibly flexible, incredibly powerful. And this is an easy way of being able to create your own custom design systems if you want to. Applying your colors inside here, your spacing, your typography, all those kinds of things. If you don't want to do this manually, use online editing tools, which you've seen are very easy to access. Most of these are completely free or have free options. There's so many things in what you can do when it comes to working with CSS variables. Now, we've only touched upon also working with global classes. And if you want to find out more about working with global classes, you can check out this video next. And if you want to learn everything you can about Bricks Builder, check out learnbricksbuilder.com, link in the description down below. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.